Like I said, we're going to read Isaiah 63. This is a chapter that I do mention a lot because it is very important when it comes to understanding the second coming. Most people, well, in Judaism, most Jews believe of Mashiach as a regular person, not from a virgin, who would have sinned as everybody else and would become the anointed king in order to be able to build the temple and resume pretty much all the sacrifices and the fulfillment of the Torah according to how they understand it, which means the letter. Therefore, not right, but is what they are expecting. That is pretty much the reason why Christians believe that the Messiah of the Jewish people is the Antichrist. And there is certain truth regarding what Jews will accept and how it will be somebody who is against the true Messiah. So that is true. It is true, but there's also certain things that are twisted in the Christian doctrine that will sadly lead them through a wrong path, or is leading them pretty much through the wrong path. And like I said, when it comes to the Jewish people, that is how they view Messiah. I'm not sure if I could say most, but a great part, at least those who study a lot of Judaism, they know of two Messiahs. So that is even closer to what we see in scriptures, and it's amazing when we understand it. But the way they see it still is not completely according to the Spirit, only according to the letter and the interpretations of many of their ancestors or rabbis whom they pretty much worship. So they have certain doctrines regarding Messiah which are right, other ones that are completely wrong, pretty much because they rejected already the first. They rejected Yahushua HaMashiach, the Kohen Hagadol. So since they rejected him, they were not able to receive the Spirit in order to understand everything that they have in information according to the Ruach, to really understand that information that they have. So on the other hand, Christians believe in Jesus as they have been taught of him, and they believe that he himself, just as he left, and pretty much misinterpreting certain verses. For instance, Acts 1 is one of the verses that most people use to go against what the scripture, the rest of scripture, says regarding the second coming. So they believe that the same, exactly the same one who left in body would return from the heavens and pick everyone up during a rapture and continue up to the heavens. And then that's how they see the second coming, pretty much as what they call the rapture, being raptured, but that same person who went up in Acts 1. So that's, in a nutshell, how they see the second coming. And that is not at all a second coming, the way scripture says it would be. First of all, that is just passing by, not coming. And well, like I said, there's a lot in scriptures that we are going to see in this chapter, but I just wanted to mention the two doctrines regarding Messiah. In Judaism, they see it as two Messiahs, one from the tribe of Yehuda and one from the tribe of Yosef. That is correct. Yahushua already fulfilled the one from the tribe of Yehuda, coming from a virgin, but being legally son of Yosef, son of David. So the last has to come from Ephraim, from Joseph. Now, Christians don't, they are not taught regarding the two messiahs and a bunch of other things. So they see it as just one who went up and then will pass by picking everybody up. But scripture tells us that before the harvest, which they call the rapture and have a wrong doctrine, the actual harvest, which happens in the middle of the last 7 years, most Christians believe that their rapture will happen at the beginning of the last 7 years. So that shows how the doctrine is completely different. In the half of the last 7 years, the last trumpet will sound, and when the last trumpet sounds, the chosen few will be harvested, transformed in the blink of an eye, taken to the heavens through the hand of Yahweh, which is his Malach, Mikael, who would manifest first before that harvest on earth, preaching the true doctrine, giving testimony of the Messiah Yahushua, being his messenger, therefore his representation, just like Yahushua is the clear representation of the Father. So the same with the last, as Yahweh through the entire book of Isaiah explains and clearly 3 times, saying, I am the first and I am the last. He will manifest twice. Yahweh in Psalm 110 said to Mashiach, well, David in Psalm 110 says, Yahweh said to my sovereign, sit at my right hand, till I go down and put your enemies as your footstool. So Yahweh himself told Messiah Yahushua to sit at the right hand, so that Yahweh can manifest again on earth through his Malach, in order to bring down the enemies of Messiah. The enemies of Messiah are those who reject him on earth, but also the angels who make sure they could kill him, pretty much Satan, Lucifer. And we see that in Revelation 12, when Lucifer, Satan, will fall to earth, being thrown out of heaven by the hand of Yahweh, Mikael. So when Satan falls to earth, that is in the middle of the last 7 years. That is why there is the second Exodus, and the chosen few will be harvested, because Satan will fall to earth, being expelled from heaven. And that moment when Satan falls from heaven to earth, that is when Satan falls from the throne. The throne of Yahweh is the heavens, and his footstool is the earth. So when Satan falls to the earth, that is the enemies of Mashiach falling as his footstool. So Yahweh will manifest again, but not as the Kohen Gadol, which is Yahushua, now as a king to fight, but with his spirit. So that's why he comes as the consuming fire, angry as the wrath, to give testimony and save the chosen few, but pretty much condemn through that testimony those who reject Messiah. And that is one of the 2 witnesses of Revelation 11. The other one is Eliyahu. So we see in Revelation 11 and the rest of scriptures that the 2 witnesses appear, and they prophesied for 3.5 years. And after they testify for those 3.5 years, they are killed. They resurrect. They go up, just like Yahushua in Acts 1. And once they go up, Satan is kicked out of heaven. So we see that Yahweh is coming to earth as the last, to bring down the enemies of Yahushua to his footstool, would be as one of the 2 witnesses, once again being joined by another witness, just like Yahushua came, and John the Baptist was also given testimony of Yahushua as Messiah. So now Yahweh will manifest again, and on his side will be Eliyahu. The second coming of Eliyahu was a clear picture of how the second coming of Yahweh to this earth would be. Yahweh does not do anything before he reveals it to his prophets, to his servants, the prophets. Yahweh doesn't do anything in this reality unless he already wrote it down. He already said it, and it's in the plan, which is the scriptures. So, as we know, Eliyahu, the prophet, didn't die. Yahweh took him. He went up. But then, years later, he was born again on earth through a couple, regular couple. He was born on this earth as John the Baptist. Yahushua said, if you can receive it, he is Eliyahu who was to come. So Yahushua clearly said, if you have enough faith to understand that he is the second coming of Eliyahu, then do so. Yahuhanan, the immerser, John the Baptist, is the second coming of Eliyahu. But some people would ask, but why? We were expecting Eliyahu to come from the heavens in a cloud because he went up alive. Just like they say right now of Yahushua. No, he's supposed to come in a cloud, the same one that went up, because we saw it in Acts 1. We could say the same regarding Eliyahu, because we saw it in the book of Kings, that he went up, so he's supposed to come down. But no, he was born as a regular person, what people would call reincarnation. So Yahushua said, if you can receive it, that means that some people cannot. And I have seen that a lot of people cannot because of the false doctrines, pretty much. So the second coming of Eliyahu was John the Baptist. He was born from a regular couple, while as Eliyahu, he went up alive. So we see there a picture that just like Yahushua went up alive, the second coming would be the Son of Man, meaning somebody who would be born from a regular man and a woman, not from a virgin like the last time. And that is also found in the book of the prophet Micah, and also in the book of the prophet YishaYahu, and also in Isaiah. Isaiah 7 speaks of the birth of the Messiah through a virgin. Isaiah 9 speaks of the birth of the last through a woman who is not a virgin. So the Isaiah 7 and Isaiah 9 speaks of the birth of the first and the last. So I hope that's clear. You know, I always like to make an introduction because that is pretty much what is found in this chapter. This chapter, as I always explain, all prophecies have several fulfillments, but mainly, or the simplest way to see them is the simplest two fulfillments. When it was given and at the end times, normally there's one in the middle. That's why I say the simplest two. And I say also that because one could see it as literal and spiritual. So when Yahweh appears on earth as one of the two witnesses, he would be fulfilling this prophecy in a way, pretty much spiritually, because he comes as a thief in the night. So people won't recognize that this prophecy is being fulfilled, because he is fulfilling what all these symbols that we will see here represent. But after the two witnesses are killed, resurrect, and taken up to heaven, then there will be a fulfillment of this prophecy in a literal sense, as we will see in a moment. So this chapter has to do with two different times: when he comes as one of the two witnesses, and then when Yahweh is coming through Mashiach to fight in the war of Har-Megiddo. So I'm going to start. As you guys know, you can write all your questions. Chapter 63 of Isaiah, verse 1 says, "Who is this who comes from Edom with dyed garments from Bosra? This one who is exalted in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I, who speak in righteousness, mighty to save." So the first verse says a lot, so I'm going to go seeing each part. In Hebrew it says, "Me say." So who is this who comes from Edom? Edom, as we know, is the brother of Jacob, who became Israel. Edom is the name that was given to him after receiving Asaph. Asaph, because he was born pretty much ready. It is said that he even had already some of his beard and teeth. So Asaph means done. He was he looked pretty much like an adult when he was born. On the other hand, Edom was given to him because he had red hair, and it is said also that his skin, his complexion, was reddish. So he was called Edom. Also, Edom means red. The name was given because he sold his his firstborn right to receive the double portion, meaning to become the high priest of the household, and to receive the world to come. Asaph did not believe in the world to come. He did not believe in the resurrection, so he thought that that was stupid. So he sold it for some food, and the food was red. So that is also another reason why he was given the name Edom. From this story, well, there are many things that we need to understand in order to comprehend what is being said in this prophecy. As I always say, Abraham represents Yahweh. That's why the name Abram, exalted father, and then Abraham, which means father of multitudes. They both have the name, or in the name, the word father, which is Ab in Hebrew. That's why Abraham. So Father, the Almighty, is represented by Abraham. From Abraham came Yitzhak first, as the promised seed, the only begotten son, as he was called, and the only son of Abraham, as he was called, to represent the only begotten son of Yahweh, Yahushua. And then from Yitzhak came Jacob. And those are the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. Yahweh presents himself as the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob, because Yahweh as father is represented by Abraham, and his two manifestations on earth are represented by Yitzhak and Jacob. That's why Yahweh asked Abraham to go and sacrifice Yitzhak, because Yahushua, the son of Yahweh, would be sacrificed for our sins. Then comes Jacob, which represents the second coming. So Jacob, as the last, comes for the 144,000, who are 12,000 from each tribe. That's why Jacob became the father of the 12 tribes. The last, through his testimony, through his doctrine, his teaching of the true doctrine, will become the spiritual father of all the 144,000 who follow that doctrine. So Jacob represents the last. When we understand that, we gotta see through the life of Jacob in order to understand the second coming, or at least see certain details that show how the last would manifest. And this chapter is a prophecy regarding that. Like I said, Jacob bought the firstborn right, the right to as the firstborn of Yitzhak from Asaph with some food, and that's why he was called Edom, because he was red food. So that word Edom reminds us of how Jacob bought that right for the world to come and to receive the double portion, meaning this world and the world to come, and other things that I will be explaining as we read the chapter. So Edom reminds us of the purchase of that right, which also reminds us of how Jacob not only bought the right but also took the blessing, which pretty much was his because he bought the right to it, but Yitzhak didn't know, so that's why he did it, entering like a thief in the night. That is why Yahushua said that the second coming would be like a thief in the night, meaning nobody would recognize him, just like Yitzhak did not recognize Jacob when he dressed as Asaph. Not only because he dressed as Asaph, but because Yitzhak had been blinded, because he was about to die, and because he had been led by his elder son Asaph to love him more, even though he was not righteous. So the fact that he was manipulated to love Asaph, pretty much, put it somehow, made Yitzhak eventually lose his sight, because he wasn't able to see that his son was not righteous, Asaph. So he lost sight Just like those who rejected Yahushua HaMashiach became blind, or were already. Yahweh blinded them so that Yahushua would be sacrificed for our sins. And then that blindness will be taken away from the true Israelites in the end times to become pretty much the chosen. But the true Israelites, and that's key. That means the most Jewish who are not true Israelites obviously won't be able to understand nor see. Therefore, they will reject the two witnesses, and that will be key for Christians, because Christians won't accept the two witnesses, because they will see if they were the two witnesses, then the Jewish people should accept them. That won't happen. Only the true Israelites will accept the two witnesses. And that's what most people don't understand, the difference between the true and fake Israelites. So since Christians pretty much think of the fake Israelites as fake Israelites, those who call themselves Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, as Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 speaks of, they are seen by Christians as the chosen. They will not accept the two witnesses. So the Christians will be like, then that means that they are not the two witnesses, because in the Christian doctrine, all Jewish people will listen to the two witnesses. In fact, in most Christian doctrines, the two witnesses are only for the Jewish people, have nothing to do with the Christians, which is obviously also very sad and very wrong. So, like I was saying, Yaakov dressed himself as Esau and entered to get the blessing while his father was blind. And his father, not knowing who he was, gave him the blessing. So it's like the last who will come as a thief in the night, dressed as Esau, meaning an Israelite dressed as a Roman, an Israelite dressed as a Gentile, as a thief in the night, Yaakov as Esau. That is key, because like I'm saying right now, most Israelites are not seen as Israelites. And most of those who are descendants of Esau, or at least half of them, are seen as Jewish. So we see there that everything is backwards, because just like back in the day, Yaakov dressed as Esau to take the blessing from Yitzhak, then Esau, in revenge, dressed as Yaakov, Israel, to get the blessing from the world, meaning the riches that they want so much. I hope that is being understood, because the enemy started calling good bad and bad good, turning everything around so that those who are Esau would be seen as Israel, and those who are Israelites would be seen as Esau. So now when Yahweh manifests on earth as a true Israelite, he is seen as a son of Esau, as a Gentile, as a Roman. Hope that is being understood. So just like Yaakov dressed as Esau, the last comes as a Gentile. Just like Yitzhak was blind, the world, the congregation is, not the true congregation, the world, because of the apostasy, is blind and is not able to see the true Messiah, the true mighty one, the true doctrine, read the scriptures, because of that blindness, because of rejecting the true Messiah. So that is very important. That's how Yaakov entered to get the blessing. That's how Yahweh will enter this world to get what is missing, what's left, to get this world also. Yahushua came and said, my kingdom is not of this world. So Yahushua came to offer something that is completely spiritual, celestial, heavenly. The last comes to bring that and mix it with the earth and fulfill everything in a physical sense, finally bringing peace to earth, and bringing the wrath of Yahweh and the prophecies of the book of Revelation and a bunch of other things. But that's why for 2,000 years many people reject Messiah, because they were expecting a lot of earthly things. But Yahushua came to bring the spiritual, the heavenly first, then the last with the two portions with the blessing given to Yahusef, blessings from the heavens, from the earth, and from the abyss also. The last comes to make one reality of heaven and earth, or get it married, pretty much. Just that's why the wedding of the Lamb, Messiah, the heavenly, marrying the congregation, the earthly. So, hope all of that is being understood. So now, I will read the verse again and say part by part. So, YishaYahu, the prophet, Isaiah, is being given a vision, a prophecy, and he doesn't understand why he's seeing somebody with so much splendor coming from such a bad place. Somebody with so much honor coming from Esav, who is not honorable. So he says, who is this who comes from Edom? So he comes in red. Who is this who comes from the red? Red represents royalty, is connected to royalty, and when it comes to the positive, but in the negative, it represents sin. That's why Yahweh says many times that even if our sins were red as scarlet, he would make them white as snow. That's why there was a thread of scarlet that was in the temple, tied up, and the other half tied up to the male goat that was left for Azazel or Azazel in the desert. There were two male goats, one sacrificed for Yahweh and the other one sent to the desert with all the sins of the people. But when the one sacrificed for the sins for Yahweh and the one with the sins was taken away from the people, then the scarlet thread in the temple would turn white. And that was a miracle that Yahweh would perform to show the people that their sins were forgiven through that sacrifice. Not understanding, sadly, that that sacrifice and all that event was a representation of what happened when Yahushua was placed next to Barabbas. Barabbas means son of the Father. So the son of the Father, Yahweh, was placed next to the son of the Father, his father, Satan, as if they were equals, like the two male goats of Yom Kippur. And the people had to choose one, well, in that case with Yahushua and Barabbas, but in Yom Kippur they would throw lots and they would decide which male goat was for Yahweh and which one for Azazel. So this time Pilate asked the people and they said, sacrifice Yahushua. So Barabbas was that one for Azazel. That was the fulfillment of it. So Yahushua is the one whose sacrifice is taken by Yahweh to forgive our sins. So the red represents sin, white represents purity. So red and white are like the last and the first. Yahushua came through a virgin and he committed no sin, so that he could fulfill the Torah and therefore free us from the condemnation given in the law. So Yahushua came spiritually represented by the color white for no sin. The last comes in red, which represents sin, and that is part of what is shown in the parable of the prodigal son. Some people say, and I agree, that it shouldn't be called the prodigal son or the parable of the prodigal son, but it should be called the parable of the father with two children because there's a lot of information given there. It's not only about a prodigal son, and I know it is a very great teaching when it comes to all of us who have been in the apostasy, in sin, whatever, coming to the Father and getting to know the truth. But above that, it is a prophecy or a clear teaching regarding the first and last, the one who did not commit sin, who came as a Kohen Gadol to forgive sins, and the last who comes as a king to punish, and for different reasons had to be born as a regular person and therefore had the inclination to evil, plus would be born in the end times, therefore in a apostasy, being taught falsehood. So all of that is part of the plan. And that is why YishaYahu back in the day was surprised and couldn't understand who could come with such splendor dressed in red, meaning who from the world of sin could receive such honor. And that has to do with Yahweh manifesting to fulfill what is left, pretty much. So I hope that is being understood. I repeat, leave all your questions on the chat. I know this is a key teaching, and I know that's why you guys asked for it. Perhaps it will sell you. Who is this who comes from Edom? As I have explained, who in Hebrew is me. And that's why the name Mikael, who is the Malach who comes at the end. Mikael, who is like Elohim. So, like I have said, me represents Yahushua, the one who shows us who is Yahweh. The last is represented by the what, by the ma in Hebrew, ma, because he explains what Yahushua said, what this world is, what Satan was created for, etc. So the first gives wisdom, the last gives understanding, represented by me and ma, who and what. Now, here it says, who is this who comes from Edom? We can understand spiritually that he's saying Mashiach, the second time that manifests, will do it from Edom. Who is this who comes from Edom? Meaning the second coming, I repeat, meaning the messenger of Yahushua who testifies of Yahushua. That's why Mikael testifies of the me. Who is like Elohim? Yahushua is like the Father Yahweh. That's what Mikael pretty much means. So, who is this who comes from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? Bozrah was a place of Edom, and that is the place where Job, the one from the book of Job, he was king of Bozrah. As I have also explained, the book of Job represents also the second coming. Somebody who is protected by Yahweh, prospered by Yahweh, but then because of Satan and also Yahweh using that to teach Satan something, teach something to Job, and well, a bunch of other things, Yahweh decides to put Job through a test. That test pretty much will be when the last will die, will be captured and then killed. So that's why Job was not an Israelite, because he represents when Yahweh would manifest as a Gentile, not genetically, but seen by society as a Gentile, because how society has been taught by Satan for many years. So Bozrah connects to Job in that story, meaning that once again the last. Bozrah has to do with the sheepfold. The sheepfold is what the name Bozrah represents. So that shows what Yahushua said in John 10. Yahushua said, I am the door and the good shepherd. That means I am the first and the last. That means I am the one who shows the way to the door to enter eternity. And the last is the good shepherd, who goes through the way which was laid by the first and enters through the door to lead the sheepfold, Bozrah, to the Father. The sheepfold also is seen as Gentile. That's why I repeat, most of the chosen few will be seen as Gentiles by most people, not understanding that they are actually Israelites, but they were scattered through the nations, and for hundreds of years were in a certain nation, and through the apostasy and everything were taught that they were of whatever nation where they were sent. So Edom and Bozrah, the fact that he comes as the prodigal son of men, with the inclination to evil, like everybody, so that nobody can say anything in judgment. Because some people would, and I'm sure certain people in the world have thought of it, most likely, in judgment would say to the Almighty that life was not fair and his plan was not fair, because Yahushua never knew what it was to be a slave to sin. Yahushua was tempted, but he never sinned. So since he never sinned, sin didn't enter his body, his self, in order to be every day fighting with a temptation, or what the inclination to evil does. Yahushua went through the temptation just like Eve went through the temptation, but Eve failed because she heard the serpent outside, and when she ate, that evil inclination entered her, and when she gave to Adam, it entered him. So Yahushua, as the last Adam, as it is written in the New Covenant, Yahushua as the last Adam was tested. He was tempted by the serpent, by Satan, but he didn't eat. So he never had the inclination to do evil within him, which is different. Plus, since he never sinned, he was never a slave to sin. So there are a couple things that Yahushua, even though he was in the flesh, didn't experience like everybody else. And that could be an argument that an enemy would try and use to try and change judgment. Yet that is the reason why Yahweh comes as the last, as everybody else, to show that he himself left the way, and that way is possible to go through belief in Mashiach. And therefore, as we are going to see here, Yahweh planned to appear twice on earth in two different times of history, and he planned to be saved by himself when he would come as the Son of Man with inclination to do evil. He would be saved by the time he appeared without that inclination, and that is how he would save himself from the fact that in the second coming, the second manifestation, he would have to enter a body like everybody else and have to go through the same things that everybody else does, so that nobody can say anything before his throne. And to show that the huge blessing that the last receives was offered to every single person in this reality, to show how good Yahweh is. That's why the last represents the good of Yahweh. That's why Yahushua was called good, and he said, why do you call me good? There's only one good, and he's in heaven. Just like in John 3:13, Yahushua says that the Son of Man is in heaven, while Yahushua, Mashiach, was on earth. So that shows that the Son of Man is the one that would come later in time as the second, the last. So I know I'm saying a lot and reading not much, but it is very important to understand all of these things that I am saying for us to see and know why these names are mentioned. So who is he who comes from Edom, from red, as a Gentile, as a Roman, as the prodigal son, with dyed garments from Bosra, as king, as Job, as the good shepherd for the sheepfold, the chosen few and the many. Two sheepfolds, Yahweh will make them one, like body and blood, like Yehuda and Israel. This one who is exalted in his apparel. So YishaYahu is surprised to see, I repeat, someone in red from Edom being exalted. And this also shows how this represents when Yahweh manifests as king, unlike the first coming when he did it as Kohen Gadol, as a high priest. So this one who is exalted in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength, traveling. Yahushua came to Israel, and he didn't go out of Israel doing his ministry. When he was young, he was taken to Egypt to escape Herod, but that was it. He was a child, and to fulfill certain prophecies. But his ministry, his life was in Israel. He came, like he said, for the lost sheep of Israel. So, traveling in the greatness of his strength is connected to the fact that the last comes outside of Israel, like a Gentile, traveling throughout the nations, preaching, teaching, and not necessarily personally. With technology, it's also possible to be somewhere without being physically teaching people, like it is happening right now, thanks to the Almighty, that I'm talking to all of you who are in different places of this world. That's why Yahushua came as the sword, and the last comes as the arrow or the bow, because with a sword you need to fight close, like Yahushua had to be in Israel. The last fights with a bow and arrow, therefore he can throw the teachings long distances. His voice will travel, just like voice travels. The last is the voice of the Malach, the voice of Yahweh, while Yahushua is the word. To read the word, you need to be close to the book, but to hear the word, you can hear the voice even if the book is being read by a person far away. So Yahushua is the word, the sword. The last is the voice, the bow and arrow. It's called the bow. The 144,000 are pretty much the arrows. So, the one who is exalted in his apparel. That doesn't mean that the last appears all with expensive clothes and all of that. Remember that the two witnesses dressed in sackcloth, meaning that their appearance won't be like the leaders of this world, religious or political. This has to do with his spirit, soul, which is Yahushua. Yahushua is the one who covers the last, just like we are covered with his blood so that the enemy cannot touch us. The blood is red, so the last is covered in Yahushua, and Yahushua is that honor that he shares pretty much with the last. So he is, just like we all must be dressed in Mashiach. We must cover ourselves of Mashiach through the body that he left for us through his sacrifice. Because if we present ourselves before Yahweh like without him covering us, Yahweh will punish for our sins, which he would be able to see, because he would be like appearing naked. When we cover ourselves with Mashiach, Yahushua, the Lamb, then we are covered, and our shame, our nakedness is not revealed, and therefore we are forgiven. So the fact that the last is dressed in exalted apparel is the fact that the last comes as a king, dressed in Yahushua spiritually. Like I said, the first interpretation would be as the last, fulfilling it spiritually. The last interpretation would be when first and last become one, and it will be physically and literally and obviously exalted even through the vision, because everybody will be able to know already everything. Right now things are hidden. Right now people are blinded. Right now we are in the spiritual night, so things are not seen clearly. But when the veil between the spiritual and the physical is destroyed, then that which is spiritual will be obviously seen. So the spiritual part of this is the last being dressed in Mashiach, Yahushua, meaning being anointed by the Ruach that Yahushua left for all of us. And other interpretation would be for Har Megiddo, when already seen as a king. So traveling in the greatness of his strength, like traveling to war, like traveling through the nations to teach, in the greatness of his strength. And then the answer is, I, who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. So Yahweh himself says to the prophet that it is Yahweh whom he is seeing. So look how the prophet was surprised and didn't recognize Yahweh who was speaking to him. So Yahweh has to say, I who speak in righteousness. So if the prophet saw the vision and wasn't able to recognize that it was the manifestation of Yahweh, imagine those who are blinded in the world right now. So, I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Let me see something in this verse. It says, May the be Bitzedekah Rab Lehoshia, great to save. And in that word Lehoshia, we can rearrange it and get the name Yahushua. So that's why the last, through the testimony of Yahushua, will become mighty to save. Interestingly enough, it says Rav Lehoshia. Rav is great, something that is multiplied, but it's also somebody who shoots an arrow. Rab, or Rab, as in rabbi, as in teacher, who instructs the way to go, as with an arrow. So this fulfills or confirms what I was saying regarding the last coming as the good shepherd, as the Rab, as the bow, to show Yahushua as the salvation. And Tzedekah has to do with the fact that Romans 10:10 says that with the heart one believes for justification, for righteousness, for Tzedekah, and the mouth one confesses for salvation. So Tzedekah and Hoshea, pretty much justice or righteousness and salvation, like heart and mouth, like the many and the few, because the many who will have to die but then resurrect and receive righteousness is because they only believed in their heart. The few not only believe in their heart but also confess with their mouth Yahushua as Savior, as sovereign, and the fact that Yahweh resurrected him, and therefore receive also the transformation during the harvest. So, I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. So I speak in righteousness, as in the fact that the last, since he fell like the prodigal son, then through his belief received righteousness to then become the one who would teach salvation. I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. That's why first speaks to the congregation, teaches the true doctrine, righteousness, and then when he dies and resurrects, takes Satan out and saves the 144,000. So that's why I who speak in righteousness, teaching the doctrine, then mighty to save during the harvest. It says, why is your apparel red? The prophet asks, why is your apparel red? He cannot understand why he's dressed in red when it should be white according to the interpretation of most people. Meaning, why are you dressed in sin? Why are you dressed like Asaph? Why is your apparel red, and your garments like one who treads in the winepress? Like I said a few moments ago, the few are the body, the flesh, represented by the bread, therefore the wheat in the harvest. The last are the blood of Messiah, of the body, meaning the grapes of the harvest. To receive the wine, we need to press the grapes in the winepress of the wrath. So the last, who comes mighty to save the chosen few, and even justified through Yahushua, of course, the many, will harvest the few and the many as the wheat and the grapes of Revelation 14. And that means that those who are many, who believe in Messiah, but then will be too late for them to receive the true doctrine when the false Messiah appears, they will be killed by the beast, but Yahweh will resurrect them because of their belief and justify them. So let's go for a moment to Revelation 14, by the end of it, verse 17. Then another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle, because there was another angel who already harvested the chosen few, the wheat. And another angel came out of the altar who had power over fire, and he cried out with a loud cry to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Those are the many for the harvest as grapes. So the angel thrust his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of Yahweh. And the winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress up to the horses' bridles for 1,600 furlongs. So that was the winepress. Then if we go to Revelation 19, which, like I said, first and in Revelation 19, like I was saying, Isaiah 63 speaks. One interpretation is when he appears as one of the two witnesses, witness like Moshe. The second interpretation, which is when he will fulfill in a physical sense, is starting from the war of Armageddon, which is found in Revelation 19, where we read verse 11. Now I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, just like the white horse of the witness like Moshe in Revelation 6. So we see he appears in a white horse twice. Christians say that the first white horse is the Antichrist, just because they don't understand the second coming. But it is clear that it is not. The first seal, the white horse, represents the two witnesses starting their testimony. The last comes on a white horse with a bow and a crown, because he comes as the Melech Hagadol. So here it says, now I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. Second time the white horse appears. The first time was the sixth seal. In the sixth seal pretty much starts the manifestation of one of the interpretations of Isaiah 63. Now here starts the second interpretation of Isaiah 63, all starting with a white horse. So then it says, and he who sat on him was called faithful and true. Like last and first, Yahushua is the truth, and the last comes in faith, faithful to the truth, as the faithful witness. Then it says, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. In righteousness, like Isaiah 63 said, traveling in greatness of his strength, I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. So now it says here in Revelation, and in righteousness he judges and makes war, because he comes once again. I repeat, the first time as a witness. Well, the first, Yahushua, came as a lawyer. The last, as one of the two witnesses, comes as a witness. When they, first and last, become one, then they are the judge. So that's why once the last dies and resurrects, he becomes the judge, even though he came as the witness. Hope that's clear. When he resurrected, he received the authority to judge, just like the 144 receive authority to judge even angels. In righteousness he judges and makes war. Yahushua came to leave on earth a fire and a sword for the last who comes and become the fire, the consuming fire, and hold the sword to kill the enemy. So that's why he speaks of making war. His eyes were like a flame of fire, consuming fire, and on his head were many crowns. He had a name written that no one knew except himself. He was clothed with a robe dipped in blood. He was clothed with a robe dipped in blood, which is what we are seeing in Isaiah 63. And his name is called the Word of Yahweh. So Yahushua, the name of Mashiach, is the Word of Yahweh. Literally. Obviously, everything that is in scriptures came inspired by the word of Yahweh. But the word of Yahweh is not the Bible. The word of Yahweh is the name of the Son, Yahushua, who inspired everything that is in scriptures. So, his name is the word of Yahweh. Then it says, and the armies in heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. Now, and those are the 144,000. Now out of his mouth goes a sharp sword. That is Mashiach. The word of Yahweh is the sword. So that means that the last is testifying of Mashiach, because the sword comes from his mouth. And he is given the name of the word, which is Yahushua. Just like the son of Nun was given the name Yahushua. He was born as Hoshea, and Yahweh gave him the name Yahushua to represent first and last as one. And that's when the people entered the promised land through Jericho with Joshua, Yahushua. So now out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should strike the nations, and he himself will rule them with a rod of iron. This is key. This is huge. Iron. Iron is the metal that represents Rome. And Rome came from Asaph, who is called Edom. Red. Red is the color of planet Mars, the god of war, the angel of Rome, Samael. So look how war is connected to Mars, is connected to color red, is connected to to kingship, to blood, to sin, Asaph, and a bunch of other things. Well, the metal, iron. Iron is connected with Rome. Iron is connected with Mars. Iron is connected with war. So that's why the last has to come dressed in red as a Roman, as a descendant of Asaph, even though he's a Israelite, but like Yaakov dressed as Asaph, in order to get the blessing from the enemy, to take that which Yahweh gave to the enemy, for the enemy to rule in this earth. That's why Yahweh appears as one of them, to take it from him. Hope that's even clearer. So now out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should strike the nations. The nations, not just the nation. The nations, because now it's worldwide. The second coming. And he himself will rule them with a rod of iron, because he's king, because he comes as a Roman, because he comes to make war, because he comes dressed in red as Jacob dressed of Asaph. Hope all of that is clear, because it's very important. He himself treads the winepress of the fierceness of and wrath of Almighty Elohim. He himself treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty Elohim. And he has on his robe and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Sovereign of Sovereigns. First and last. So now I'm going to go to Isaiah 63 again. And it says, verse 2, why is your apparel red, and your garments like one who treads in the winepress? We just saw in Revelation 19 how he was the one who treaded the winepress of the wrath of Yahweh, where the grapes, who are the many, were put in the harvest. So, verse 3, Yahweh responds, I have trodden the winepress alone. This is important. What connections does the Orthodox Jews follow to conclude and determine who is Asaph and Amalek? I think they say USA is Asaph. I might be wrong about that. They say it's Rome, but they say that USA is a branch of Rome. So that's why they call USA the biggest representation of Rome nowadays, because it's the strong nation that it is seen as the one that controls the rest. And also, I don't doubt that many of those literally come from Asaph, obviously not all. So one cannot take an entire nation, even the United States, which is mixed of a bunch of different nations of the world. One cannot say that the United States is Asaph, but its leadership and the fact that it is a strong country in the world, one of the main, is the reason why it is seen as Asaph. But like I said, originally Rome, because Asaph went to inhabit the land of Kittim. Kittim is what now is known as Rome, according to the book of Yashar, the tradition, a bunch of other things. And Amalek is a descendant of Asaph. So pretty much those descendants of Asaph who hate Israel the most, those are Amalek. Hope that's understood. Can you address to Christians who might think that the Messiah's sacrifice, which came 2,000 years ago, was enough to cover all sins without needing anything else? Well, let me see. Can you address to Christians who might think that the Messiah's sacrifice, which came 2,000 years ago, was enough to cover all sins without needing anything else? Well, it is, yet people fall short to understand that there are a lot of other prophecies that are connected to that sacrifice, which is so important. Because the last couldn't do anything without Yahushua's sacrifice. So at the end, anything that the two witnesses do is through what Yahushua left available. It is like saying that faith alone saves, when we know that faith without works is dead. So that is pretty much the issue with a lot of people. They believe that just believing that the Almighty came, died for their sins is enough, and they're just waiting to be raptured, not thinking that they should seek to know the Father who made them, to seek to know the Son who died for them, to make sure that they know the true Son and not the one who Satan has been building for the world to be fooled by it, as the many idols that are found in churches. So my point is that it is true that Yahushua's sacrifice, it does everything. But once again, I repeat, then why did he come 2,000 before the end? Why not at the very end? Why did he why did he not do judgment or condemnation, only forgiveness? Meaning, what I mean is that what happened with the wicked of the world? He only came for the righteous. Well, he said that he came for the sinners who accept their sin and therefore become righteous, because those who believed to be righteous were blinded and did not accept Messiah. Therefore, that showed that they were not righteous at all. Their righteousness was false, just like many people's righteousness nowadays. They are self-righteous, not by Mashiach. So the last comes and becomes righteous through Mashiach, and therefore is able to fulfill what is left, bringing also the condemnation for the wicked. That's why he comes as the king. Yahushua came as the Kohen Gadol. So there are many things that are found in scriptures. Like I said, that in part, that which they believe is true, but it's being taken out of context, and they are not seeing the rest of the prophecies and the rest of Yahweh's plan, because they just want to be done with it. They don't want to work for it, anything. They just want everything pretty much spiritually lazy. They want everything free. They want the kingdom of Yahweh to be communist, pretty much. The issue I find with this question, and it's not with you, but I know there are a lot of people think this way, and that's why I say that I find an issue with that question, is that what do they mean by needing anything else? Yahweh doesn't need anything. He didn't need Yahushua's sacrifice. He doesn't need anything. It is us that need him. So it is us who should look for what we need. So just that thought has everything twisted. thinking Yahweh needs anything when he doesn't. It is us, and therefore that is why we must seek knowledge, wisdom, understanding, read scriptures, pray, and with faith ask for more understanding. So let me see. Yeah, I find an issue with that question because it's not formulated right. Yahweh doesn't need anything. He didn't even need the sacrifice of Messiah, unless you understand the second coming. Because Yahweh himself comes as the last, being saved by the first. So in that sense, the last needs the first. Yeah. And that is all he needs. So I repeat, depending on how you see that question, is right. But I know that they don't understand really what they are saying. So that's why I said all the extra things. All the things that I mentioned regarding how Mashiach came to fulfill a part. He himself said it, that it was only part. There are a lot of questions that can be made to show that that argument is wrong. And like I said, there's a way to see it correct. Faith does bring salvation, bring justification. However, faith without works is not true faith. Many people think they have faith and not really, because they are not putting to works what they are claiming to believe. Also, we need to understand that in the book of Leviticus in scriptures we find that there are two types of sins, conscious and unconscious. Also, we need to understand that there were 6 different types of offerings. Yahushua fulfilled one of them. So, well, we could say 2 of them, but literally 1. That's why we need to understand that the other sacrifices also represent something that would be fulfilled on this earth. Just like Pesach was a representation of Yahushua's sacrifice. Also, the other feasts, just like the sacrifice of the lamb was a representation of Yahushua's sacrifice, then the other sacrifices also represent something. So we need to seek Yahweh to know what those sacrifices represent. Because he doesn't need them, the people need them. So the people should get to know why those sacrifices were done, so that we must understand what still has to be fulfilled. Then it says, sorry, I know it's not the subject, but I don't understand how the Orthodox chose to start the civil year of the 7th month. I already saw a similar question in this program. What so what is your question? Why they start on the 7th month? Because they believe according to, well, I explained it. I don't know how you didn't get it into this program. Because I'm pretty much going to say the same. The kings are crowned and they start the reign on the 7th month. So the king has to do with civil rights. So the civil year starts with the time in which the king starts his reign. Second, according to the Talmud, the opinion that they most follow, because there's different opinion, I'm of the other one, but the opinion that they follow the most is that Yahweh created this earth at the end of Elul, and man, he created Adam on the 1st of the 7th month. So to them, creation started on the 7th month, and therefore that's where the years change. Even though Yahweh told us that the year starts on the 1st month, obviously, Aviv, they say that that is only the feasts. To follow the feasts, they start with the 1st month as Aviv, but the rest of things, the 7th month as the 1st of the year. Hope that's clear. And also in Babylon, Babylon had a lot to do with it. Let me see what else. What numerical value do the letters mighty to save? The numerical value of mighty to save, 623. 623. Um, all right. Well, just since I mentioned it, 620 are the number. Well, is the numerical value for crown. 623, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were crowned, and well, I'm sure if I go, that was not the question, so I'm not going to get into it. But you just asked for the value, so 623. One can go and see other words that are connected with that value to see the connection with mighty to save. But I will see the other questions and then continue with the reading. Can this rod of iron be represented by the staff of Aaron? No, because it was not made of iron. But yes, in the sense of that it represents authority, like all rods or staffs. It would be connected to the Moshe's staff, because it's the witness like Moshe. But I repeat, it's not of iron. It has to do, the rod of iron has to do with ruling as an emperor, like those of Rome. An emperor had authority over the government and the religion, like first and last. Kohen Gadol, Melech Gadol, priest and king. That's why he made us priests and kings. So that's pretty much, and also the iron being the strength in judgment. All right, thank you, Jay. Those are the questions. I'm going to continue with the verse. So, verse 3, I have trodden the winepress alone. The winepress alone. Meaning that he is the one who fulfills everything by himself. That's why he came as first, came as last. When he came as first, Yahuhanan, who was pretty much the other witness, didn't even walk with him. He wasn't one of his disciples. So that shows how in the beginning, as the first, he came alone, as the seed, which dies alone in order for the root to grow and then the tree branches and give fruit. The first is the root, the last is the branch. So the coming alone manifests with Yahushua as coming like the leader of the 12 and being killed alone in the sense of dying for our sins, and like the seed. He had a couple people next to him, but they had nothing to do when it comes to what I'm saying. That's why he died alone. That's why he himself said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, meaning, mighty, my mighty one, my Elohim, why have you forsaken me? He felt alone. When it comes to the last, that will be fulfilled in a different way, because he comes in the middle or in the midst of the 144,000. So he's not alone in that sense. He's not alone in that sense. But when it comes to the fact that he's captured and nobody in the world will defend him and everybody will reject him, 144,000 are his children, are his body, pretty much. So they don't count in that sense. The 144,000 believe, but they are his body, so he's alone in the spiritual sense. That's why the first fulfilled it in the literal, the last in the spiritual. So I have trodden the winepress alone. He has to come and show the many who are the grapes that they are wrong, that their doctrine is not the true doctrine. So he's not coming with a huge ministry helped by a specific government or by a specific ministry or whatever. He doesn't come with the things that this world expects or wants in those churches, which they receive pretty much in those churches. He comes alone in the sense that nobody will be teaching the same doctrine other than those who are his. So he's alone in doctrine. He's alone in everything else, pretty much, many ways. But I repeat, spiritually, for he is in the midst of 144,000. So physically, he has family, those who believe the same doctrine that he's teaching alone. So I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no one was with me. No one was with me. Like I said, even the witness like Eliyahu, is one of his children, spiritually speaking. So him as leader is alone, even being next to the other witness. In that sense, he is alone, in the sense that he taught that doctrine to that witness and the rest of the 144,000. Also, this could be taken as because many people ask me if the two witnesses will appear together or separate. So this verse could be taken as separate, but for many reasons I do believe that is more like what I just mentioned of Eliyahu being his child, just like Yitzhak was Abraham's child, and Abraham was going alone through the earth with his family, and he was alone in his belief. So that's what I mean, where is being said here. I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no one was with me. The nations will not accept him, they won't help him. From the peoples no one was with me, for I have trodden them in my anger. He comes to bring judgment. So angry, they are expecting a lamb, but now they will receive a lion. So he comes angry, and people will not understand that, so they will take him as evil, mean, this and that. Even more so with the fact that nowadays everybody is expecting for people to speak politically, to be politically correct, and that is not something that Yahweh will do, because something is right and something isn't. Nothing is politically correct yet incorrect in another sense. Is either correct or not. Truth, to be politically correct, is to be a hypocrite, to be false, to be a politician, and everybody knows what politicians do. So Yahweh is no politician. He is the truth, which has nothing to do with politics. So I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no one was with me. For I have trodden them in my anger. That's why they are not with him, because he himself trodden them with his anger. So the fact that he's angry makes everybody in the world hate him and go away from him and not support him and not want to hear from him. For I have trodden them in my anger and trampled them in my fury. Their blood is sprinkled upon my garments, like we saw in Revelation 19. First, he comes to destroy with his teaching, those teachings which are false. And then in Revelation 19, to destroy now whatever is standing against Yahweh in the literal sense. So I have trodden them in my anger and trampled them in my fury. Their blood sprinkled upon my garments, and I have stained all my robes. And I have stained all my robes. For the day of vengeance is in my heart. Yahushua came as the head. When it comes to first and last, the first is the brain, the last is the heart. That's why the King David had a heart like unto the heart of Yahweh. So David represents the last, who has the vengeance of Yahweh in his heart. First and last, brain and heart, they are both needed in a body. The body is the chosen few, the blood are the many. The heart is the one who pumps the blood. That's why he's the one who treads the winepress to get the blood. The heart is the last, the heart of the congregation. Yahushua is the brain who gave the intellect, the wisdom to understand where to go, how to act. So, as we know, a body cannot function without a brain. And also, a body cannot function without a heart. So that shows how first and last are needed, both. Their blood is sprinkled upon my garments, and I have stained all my robes, for the day of vengeance is in my heart. And the year of my redeemed has come. The year, like when Yahushua read in the synagogue because of the Jubilee, Isaiah 61, and pretty much told everybody that he's Mashiach, and they were ready to kill him. Here we see something similar. That day of vengeance is in my heart, like the millennium, the 1,000 years. To Yahweh, 1,000 years is like a day. So the day of vengeance, the Shabbat, the millennium of vengeance, is in my heart. And the year of my redeem has come, the Jubilee, the last Jubilee, the year 6,000. Yahushua came for the year 4,000, another Jubilee. And he read that he's Mashiach and that the year of redemption had come, because Yahushua came to bring redemption. That's why when he was on the cross, he said, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they do." If the vengeance of Yahweh was in his heart, he wouldn't say that. He would say something like, "Bring the vengeance upon them, for they know now what they do." And that's why the last is the vengeance, because now they know. Yahushua came already and told them, and they're going to kill him again, just like they did the last time. Not in the same way, but they're going to kill him again, reject him, and kill him. So the first came to show the truth. Now that the truth is available, no one can say anything. That's why Yahweh will appear again with vengeance. Now people know the truth and they still reject it. So Yahweh will give them another chance and they will act in the same way. So that's why the day of vengeance is in my heart, the Shabbat, the millennium. That shows that he comes to enter that day, to start that day of Yahweh, which is the millennium, which shows that this fulfills at the end of history. And the year of my redeem has come. That's pretty much when the sixth seal happens. That is when the Jubilee starts. 7 months later, the second Exodus. The chosen few are harvested. And we are so close to that those words, the year of my redeem has come, are amazing. Every time I read them, I feel them like they are fulfilling in present time. And obviously I've read them many times in my life, but the more I read them, it's amazing how that feeling gets stronger and stronger, meaning it feels that that day is really approaching. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeem has come. I looked, listen to this, I looked, but there was no one to help. I looked, but there was no one to help. Like I said, the last, which is the second manifestation of Yahweh on earth, comes as the prodigal son, born like Zerubbabel, born in Babel, born in confusion. So the last comes as a Roman because he's born within the nations. He's taught a false doctrine. So when he grows, as we see in the prodigal son story, he realizes that he is eating with the pigs while he is a son. So he realizes that the false doctrine led them through a wrong path, in which he ended up acting like an animal. And not only an animal, one which is impure, a pig. So when he realizes that, because Yahweh gives him understanding, he realizes that there is no one to help in the world. There is no one to teach the true doctrine. He realizes what the 144,000 also realized, that all religions are false, that everybody's teaching a false doctrine, that only Yahweh in scriptures, through scriptures, can teach us the truth through Yahushua HaMashiach, who left his spirit for us to understand. So the last realizes that there is no one other than himself, Yahweh. So that everything that is said regarding Yahweh is one, Yahweh Echad, can be finally fulfilled. He himself has to experience that he is the only Elohim that exists. He himself has to experience coming to earth as a man and having to find himself. Hope that's understood. And I looked, but there was no one to help. There's no true doctrine. And no one will help the two witnesses. When they take the two witnesses to be killed, no one will help them. And I wondered, Yahweh is speaking, and I wondered that there was no one to uphold. There was no one to uphold the truth, Yahushua, the true doctrine. Let me see this verse 5. No one to help. and no one to uphold. It says, where did it go? Yeah. So I looked, but there was no one to help, and I wondered that there was no one to uphold. Therefore, listen to this. Therefore, my own arm brought salvation for me. That's huge. That is an amazing verse once it's understood. Therefore, my own arm brought salvation for me. There are two things to see here. Pretty much he's saying, so since nobody wanted to help me and nobody could save me because there is no Elohim other than me, then I had to save myself. That is huge. My own arm brought salvation to me, as if his own arm is somebody else bringing something for him. Just like Yahushua, who is the arm of Yahweh, the last is the hand who harvests. So the first is the arm, the last is the hand. That's why here the last, as the hand says, my arm, Yahushua, brought salvation 2,000 years ago for me to be able to get salvation in a time in which nobody wants to help nor save. Hope that's understood. I looked, but there was no one to help, and I wondered, and there was no one to uphold. Therefore, my own arm, Mashiach, is the arm. The prophet, like Moshe, is the hand. First and last become one, like arm and hand are one extremity. So, therefore, my own arm brought salvation for me, and my own fury, it sustained me. My own fury. Yahushua came to bring mercy, and it was mercy that sustained him. The last comes, and it's through his fury and the wrath that is within him that it must fulfill after his resurrection. It is that fury which sustains him in that moment in which only Yahweh will save him through Yahushua. So, therefore, my own arm brought salvation for me, and my own fury, it sustained me. I have trodden down the peoples in my anger. I have trodden down the peoples, the many, the peoples in my anger. Because not only the many, but also the nations, of course. But only the many will be resurrected for righteousness, for justification. I have trodden down the peoples in my anger, made them drunk in my fury. When they hear the doctrine, like when Yahushua made wine from the water, which is the best wine. But it is as if some people in the wedding where he made the wine did not control themselves and had no tolerance, so they took a little bit and were completely drunk, so they couldn't act well anymore. Pretty much like when the two witnesses appear, the witness like Moshe preaches the true doctrine, and that true doctrine as the new wine, the best wine, well, in the sense of what I'm saying with the wedding, those people who are drinking the wine of the fornication of the whore of Babylon will not be able to take the wine given by the last. They will hate it. So that's pretty much like getting drunk through his wine, so that they won't understand the doctrine of the witness like Moshe, even when they hear it closely as a drunk person. The doctrine will make them drunk like the wine, because that which the witness like Moshe will teach will make the people hate him, will make the people not understand at all. They will be confused with the teaching because of the teaching in which they are, which doesn't teach them anything. And therefore, like it is written, for lack of knowledge my people are destroyed. For lack of knowledge my people are destroyed. Now it says here, I have trodden down the peoples in my anger, make them drunk in my fury, and brought down their strength to the earth, like Lucifer, who will fall from heaven to the earth, from the throne to his footstool. Like Yahweh said to Yahushua, sit at my right hand until I go down and put your enemies as your footstool. So brought down their strength to the earth. The earth is Yahweh's footstool. We see there the confirmation of that verse in Psalm 110 as the last manifesting on earth in the end times. So That is why a lot of you guys have told me, and well, I see it, that when you guys start in the congregation, whether Spanish or English, whatever, it most of the things I said are not understood at all, and many times people come and say, well, the first month I was all confused, I couldn't understand anything, but I was patient, I prayed, I fasted, and then I started understanding everything all of a sudden. It is amazing. I have heard that from many people, and I'm so glad. That is a blessing, that is huge, that is amazing. And I praise Yahweh for that. But that shows how many people will come here, and since in the first, second, even third perhaps time won't receive or understand that much because of the doctrine from hence they came, then they won't be able to process it, digest it, and therefore will reject it as something stupid, dumb, crazy, or any other title that they decide to use just because they don't understand. So the true doctrine pretty much becomes confusing for those who are in the false doctrine. And if they don't have faith, patience, and everything else that I mentioned, then they won't be able to get it, as a drunk person is not able to get much from a deep conversation. So I have trodden down the peoples in my anger, made them drunk in my fury, and brought down their strength to the earth. Verse 7. I will mention the loving kindness of Yahweh and the praises of Yahweh, according to all that Yahweh has bestowed on us, and the great goodness toward the house of Israel, which he has bestowed on them according to his mercies, according to the multitude of his loving kindness. Like the father of a multitude, he is father of a multitude of loving kindness. So look how Yahweh, after saying everything regarding his anger as the last, all of a sudden starts speaking about what he will preach to the chosen and to the world, which they won't accept and they will reject because they will be drunk. I will mention the loving kindness of Yahweh. The last appears to teach, and the main teaching is that Yahweh is love, because he sent Yahushua to save us. I will mention the loving kindness of Yahweh and the praises of Yahweh, like David, who would praise Yahweh in psalms, and the praises of Yahweh according to all that Yahweh has bestowed upon us, like the chosen few, and the great goodness toward the house of Israel, like the last comes to bring the good of Yahweh, which he has bestowed on them according to his mercies, shown through Yahushua, according to the multitude of his loving kindness, which will manifest through the last. For he said, surely they are my people, children who will not lie. This verse is important, and this verse shows how, if a person wants to really become a son of Yahweh, if a person wants to really become his people, that person must abandon lies. They are my people, children who will not lie. So we must reject the lie. Whatever lie our foolish heart may want us to speak, and of course the biggest lie, which is the false doctrine, the false Messiah. Yahushua is the truth. Therefore, the false Messiah, the false name, is the lie. That's why the chosen few, 144,000, it is written that there was no lie found in their mouths, no falsehood found in their mouths, because they have the word of Yahweh, which is the name Yahushua, which is the truth. So that's why surely they are my people, children who will not lie. So I say it all the time, we need to stay away from lying. Anything that may be close to lying, we should stay away and even hate it. So he said, surely they are my people, children who will not lie. So he became their savior. Amazing. Since they will not lie, meaning since they receive Yahushua the truth, then he became their savior. He became the last who would come to harvest them. And also, obviously, he became the first who came to save. Yahushua came to bring salvation for the soul, the last salvation for the body. That's why first and last make it so that the chosen few 144 don't have to die at all, because even their bodies are now in a way paid for. So they are transformed. First and last, spiritual and physical, so soul and body. There are many other things to be said there and what each represents and everything, but I'm just trying to show how Yahweh separated. He decided to separate everything in two. That's why he started the book of Genesis with the second letter, which has the value of 2, because creation started with 2, while Yahweh is 1. But when he would manifest on earth, the earth which he created with the root of 2, then that meant that he would have to manifest twice. Let's see. Verse 8. Le Moshiach. Moshiach, not Mashiach. Mashiach is anointed. Moshiach is a person that saves, a savior. Moshiach. So Moshiach is, interestingly enough, like a mix of the name Moshe and Yahushua. Moshe and Yahushua, we pretty much get Moshiach, or Moshe and Mashiach. But because of the letters is that I said Moshe and Yahushua is the mix of this title, Moshiach. So he became for them a Moshiach, like Mashiach manifesting as Moshe. Verse 9. In all their affliction, he was afflicted. Like I said, he came as first and last to be able to experience everything that humanity has experienced. That's why in all their affliction, he was afflicted. Not only does Yahweh afflict himself or feels bad when he sees us feeling bad, but he himself entered a body to feel literally bad in order to understand what we go through and help us, lead us. Because also it is interesting to know that the best advice one can give is when one has experienced that which one may be speaking of. Normally one can give an advice according to theory, to something you read in a textbook, but that advice won't be as wise as if you have lived through whatever you're talking about produces or causes. So when you have gone through certain things and that certain things brought consequences, those consequences teach us things that cannot be taught on books. So those things make helps us to be able to give better advice. Yahweh as the last is called the wonderful counselor, advisor, because as the last he comes to experience humanity, and through that experience he is able to even grow in advice. And I mean as Mashiach. Obviously Yahweh knows all things and all of that, but he himself is so humble that he entered a body and experienced everything that everybody experiences, because in their afflictions he was afflicted also. In all their afflictions he was afflicted, and the malach of his presence saved them, confirming, blessed be the Most High, for real, what I've been saying. Yahweh sends his malach, Mikael, which is the malach of his presence, malach hapanim. That's why he comes as the lechem hapanim, the lechem of the presence, which was in the set apart place, while Yahushua is the manna, the bread of life that came down from heaven, which was inside the Ark of the Covenant within the most set apart place. So the manna is Yahushua the first. The lechem hapanim, the bread of the presence, represents the last, as here we read verse 9. Umalach panayv, in this case, of your face, the malach of your face, of your presence, because the last comes also as the face that the world will see. Yahushua will remain in heaven at the right hand of the Father, so only the 144,000 will be able to look upon him. That's why Yahushua said to the 12, which represent the 144,000, Yahushua told them, the world will not see me, but you will see me. So the last is Mikael, who is the face. That's why he's the Malach of the face. The Malach of your face, as it is read here. Will save them. So it says verse 9. In their affliction he was afflicted, and the angel of his presence, the Malach of his face, saved them. Yahushua came to leave salvation available. The last comes to take it and use it to save the 144,000 who believe in that Savior, Yahushua. The Malach of his presence saved them. In his love and in his pity, he redeemed them. Love and pity. He redeemed them. As in first and last, once again, that's why Yahweh always speaks in everything he says. It seems like he's saying the same thing twice, or the same thing in two different ways. And that is because he's the first and last. He's the same in two different ways, in two different manifestations, because it's pretty much the same way. Yahweh as Yahushua the way, the last as he who leads the way. So, and he bore them and carried them all the days of old. Even the fact that Yahushua came on the year 4000, and people would say, but why did you manifest until the year 4000? Even so, Yahweh was the one who gave everything and manifested through the Malachim and through the prophets to the people through 4,000 years. And he bore them and carried them all the days of old. But they rebelled and grieved his Ruach HaKodesh, like they did for the past 2,000 years. And they rebelled and grieved, like 2,000 years, rebelled and grieved his Ruach HaKodesh. Obviously, through their rebellion, this Ruach was grieved. But I mean the fact that it says two things, as in the 2,000 years, even though it's also speaking about the 4,000 years before Mashiach. Before Mashiach came, they had already grieved the Ruach. But they rebelled and grieved the Ruach HaKodesh. So he turned himself against them as an enemy. That's huge again. He turned himself against them as an enemy, because as the first he came as a savior, as a lawyer to help, to defend. The last comes as an enemy, because he comes as a thief in the night. Satan is a thief. The last comes as a thief. He's not a thief, but people will see him as a thief, because they call good evil and evil good. Therefore, they will see the good of Yahweh and call him evil, while they will see the son of evil and call him good. So, this is a very important verse. They rebelled and grieved his Ruach HaKodesh, so he turned himself against them as an enemy. He comes as the last, as an enemy, as a thief in the night. They will see him as an enemy because he will be angry, because he will tell them the truth to their face, etc. So he turned himself against them as an enemy. And he fought against them. He fought against them. Like Yahushua, Yahweh, through Yahushua's revelation given to the Malach who brought it to Yahuhanan, John, in Revelation, the book of Revelation. It says to one of the 7 congregations of Revelation 2 and 3, Yahweh tells them to repent. Otherwise, I will come to you and fight with them, those who do not repent, those who are in rebellion, in the apostasy, with the sword of my mouth. So Yahweh himself said that he would appear on earth again and preach, and had to fight with the preachers of this time who are teaching falsehood. Yahweh said it. So why are the Christians waiting for the rapture to happen and are not expecting for anybody to come to the congregations and tell them the truth, and have to fight spiritually with those false teachers, like Yahushua did in a way? So it says, so he turned himself against them as an enemy, and he fought against them. A spiritual fight that will be led by the witness like Moshe. That's why they will hate him, because they will see him as somebody who wants to fight, but that's not the point. He's the zeal of Yahweh. That's why he's jealous for the truth, and that jealousy is his passion, which is in his heart, as the vengeance of Yahweh, which will come out of the mouth, because a person speaks of that which is treasure in his heart. That which is in his heart is what comes out of the mouth. The last has vengeance in his mouth, in his heart. That's why his words will be of vengeance, and people will not understand that. He fought against them, like Yahweh promises in the book of Revelation, for the last to appear in the end times in the middle of congregations and have to fight their leaders. And I repeat, spiritually fight, debate and stuff like that, not with fists. So then he remembered the days of old, meaning that he would appear at the end of times, and that's why he would have to remember the days of old. Then he remembered the days of old, Moshe and his people. Look how the name Moshe appears in the chapter, which represents the coming of the prophet like Moshe promised to him in Deuteronomy 18. That's why he remembers Moshe and his people, because the last who comes from Edom comes as Moshe for his people during the second Exodus. Then he remembered the days of old, Moshe and his people, saying, where is he who brought them up out of the sea? Where is he who brought them up out of the sea? Like the 144,000 need to be brought up from the nations which are represented by the sea. And that will happen through the doctrine, and then ultimately during the harvest. Where is he who brought them up out of the sea? With the shepherd of his flock. Making reference to Moshe, making reference to the Malach of his presence, who led Moshe. Therefore, showing how the Malach of his presence, Mikael, is the one who will fulfill the prophet like Moshe promised to him in Deuteronomy 18. So the last comes as the good shepherd of John 10, the second manifestation of Yahweh on earth. Where is he who brought them up out of the sea with the shepherd of his flock? Where is he who put his Ruach HaKodesh within them, like in Shavuot, and like he will do as the latter rain in the end times, for the chosen few to receive the Ruach through the name Yahushua, as written in John 14:26. Where is he who put his Ruach HaKodesh within them, who led them by the right hand of Moshe, who led them by the right hand? Once again, the hand is the witness like Moshe. The arm is Yahushua HaMashiach. So the last is the hand who comes to lead the sheepfold, the flock through the way, which is Yahushua. Who led them by the right hand of Moshe with his exalted arm. Led them by the right hand of Moshe, because Moshe is the hand and the arm is Yahushua. So that's why it says hand and then arm, last and first. Who led them by the right hand of Moshe. Right hand of Moshe, like in Isaiah 46, Yahweh calls Cyrus his anointed, who he holds by his right hand. If one is held by the right hand, then one is at the left of whoever is holding your hand. So Yahushua is at the right hand of the Father. The last is held by his right hand, therefore is on the left. So that's why it says here, who led them by the right hand of Moshe with his exalted arm. Through Yahushua, the witness like Moshe will be able to lead the chosen few. Dividing the water before them, like the teaching in wisdom and understanding. First and last, first and latter rain. Dividing the water before them, obviously the sea, but that is how the last, through Yahushua, the water of life, will make a way for the chosen few to enter eternity without having to experience death, being transformed in the blink of an eye. Who led them by the right hand of Moshe with his exalted arm, dividing the water before them, to make for himself an everlasting name. That's why he revealed his name through Moshe. Moshe asked for the name. Yahweh told him, I have not revealed with my name to Abraham, nor Yitzhak, nor Jacob, but he gave the name to Moshe, because that was the time in which his name had to be exalted. That's why the last, as the witness like Moshe, appears to exalt the name of Yahweh and Yahushua, like Moshe did in that time. And in this time will be even greater, by a whole lot greater than the first Exodus. So, to make for himself an everlasting name, like he's doing right now, who led them through the deep, as Yahweh will lead the many when they go to the Sheol, the deep, as a horse in the wilderness, who led them through the deep as a horse in the wilderness, that they might not stumble. The way of Yahweh Yahushua, the last, comes on a white horse. Once again, we see it here, another confirmation. On the white horse, to lead the chosen few who are the flock through the way to Yahweh, in the middle of the nations which are like the sea. As a horse in the wilderness, that they might not stumble. The apostasy of nowadays is the wilderness, that they might not stumble in the apostasy of the world. As a beast goes down into the valley, and the Ruach of Yahweh causes him to rest, so you lead your people to make yourself an exalted name. Look how it mentioned to make yourself an exalted name twice already, like the first and the last. Yahushua says in John 17 that he appeared to teach the name of Yahweh, and that he would do it again in the second time as the last. So both first and last appear to show the true doctrine, which starts with the name of the Father and the name of the Son. So that's why it was mentioned in verse 13 and 14. 12 and 14. To make for himself an everlasting name. And now 14, to make yourself an exalted name. Look how the first, make for himself, when he appeared as the seed, one separated from everybody, the only begotten Son of Yahweh, to make for himself an everlasting name, given everlasting life. Now the last is Yahweh appearing as man, being himself the creator. So it says in verse 14, to make yourself an exalted name. Himself and yourself. Yourself is obviously more personal, as he becomes when he comes as the last in the midst of the congregation, the 144,000. So to make yourself an exalted name. So as a beast goes down into the valley, like whatever animal you may want to think, goes to a place where Yahweh leads them through his Ruach in order for them to find rest, so Yahweh will lead through his Ruach the chosen few who are like sheep to follow the good shepherd. Verse 15. Look down from heaven and see from your habitation, set apart and exalted. Where are your zeal and your strength? The zeal as the last, the strength is the first, because I can do all things in Yahushua Mashiach who strengthens me. It is written. So the strength was given to us through Yahushua HaMashiach the first. The zeal is the one who burns like the consuming fire. The zeal who will fulfill the wrath. So the zeal and the strength last and first. Where are your zeal and your strength? The yearning of your heart last, and your mercies first toward me. I mean, the heart is the last, like I already said, and the mercy was manifested through Yahushua, who brought salvation, forgiveness of sins. The yearning of your heart and your mercies toward me, are they restrained? This pretty much is the prophet speaking in behalf of the people. Look down from heaven and see from your habitation, set apart and exalted. Set apart, Yahushua HaMashiach, exalted, the last. Also could be taken as the one who is set apart from the chosen few to become the last, and Yahushua who is exalted above the heavens at the right hand of the Father. Where are your zeal and your strength? The yearning of your heart and your mercies toward me, are they restrained? Doubtless you are our Father. Doubtless you are our father. Though Abraham was ignorant of us, meaning even if Abraham would not recognize us, because if he were to see us nowadays, very different than perhaps what he could have expected. Even if he were to reject us as his children, Yahweh won't, because we did not reject Mashiach, Yahushua, his son. Obviously, Abraham won't do that, but this is something hypothetical. Even if he were to do so, he is a man. Yahweh, who is not, he wouldn't. Also, to show what happened with Yahushua, with the Pharisees who thought because they were children of Abraham that they were going to be saved, and Yahushua told them that they were wrong, because Yahushua can bring children of Abraham from the stones. So, doubtless you are our father, though Abraham was ignorant of us. Also, another way of seeing it is that we are in the end times and we became children of Yahweh, but Abraham did not understand that in his time. He couldn't understand completely how Yahweh made this creation for the chosen few to become his children. So he was ignorant of us coming to the earth and becoming children of Yahweh through the promise given to him, even though we are children of Yahweh. Doubtless you are our father, though Abraham was ignorant of us. And Israel does not acknowledge us. Like I was saying, the chosen few are not seen as Israelites nowadays. That's why he comes from Edom, as a thief in the night, as a Gentile. Because to the Israel of nowadays, we are not Israelites. If we were to go to Israel today and say, I'm an Israelite, I would like to get the citizenship, they would say you're crazy. And then even if they, for whatever reason, they find information that you are an Israelite, they would ask you if you accept Messiah, Yahushua, and if you do, they won't give it to you. So that's why Abraham and Israel reject us. They don't acknowledge us. Meaning those who don't accept Yahushua, of course. So, though Abraham was ignorant of us and Israel does not acknowledge us, you, O Yahweh, are our father. This is huge. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter who they claim they are. You know who you are when Yahushua is within you. So, though Abraham was ignorant of us and Israel does not acknowledge us, you, O Yahweh, O sovereign, are our father. Let me see if it says sovereign or Yahweh. Hold on. Yahweh. So, you, Yahweh, are our father. Our Redeemer from everlasting is your name. Our Redeemer, Yahushua, gave the redemption through his blood. From everlasting, Yahushua is the everlasting life. Is your name. Yahushua is the word of Yahweh. His name is the word of Yahweh. He came in the name of the Father, and the world did not receive him. When somebody comes in his own name, that one they will receive. So that's why Yahushua, Yahweh, Yahushua, the name of the Father is in the name of the Son. So look how this last part, our Redeemer from everlasting is your name. Because through his name, the name of the Son, we are saved and redeemed from this world by him who came 2,000 years ago. For us is like everlasting. So you, O Yahweh, are our Father. The last comes as the father of the chosen few. So that you, O Yahweh, are our Father represents the last. Our Redeemer from everlasting is your name represents the first, Yahushua. O Yahweh, are our Father. Our Redeemer from everlasting is your name. That's verse 16 at the end. Yahweh Avinu. Goaleinu Ma'olam Shamcha. Goaleinu Ma'olam. Goaleinu Ma'olam could be seen as another title for Yahweh. Goaleinu, our Redeemer, Ma'olam, of everlasting. So, our Redeemer from everlasting is your name. O Yahweh, why have you made us strayed from your ways? That is the apostasy of the past 2,000 years. O Yahweh, and obviously in the time when YishaYahu said it, had to do with his time, and when Yahushua came, it had to do with the 4,000 years before Yahushua. But now that we are in the end times, this has to do with the past 2,000 years. O Yahweh, why have you made us stray from your ways and harden our heart from your fear? People don't fear Yahweh nowadays, and the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. That's why, since they don't fear Yahweh, they are not wise, even though they claim to be. O Yahweh, why have you made us stray from your ways during the past 2,000 years, apostasy, and harden our heart from your fear, like the Pharaoh in Egypt, whose heart was hardened? So if Yahweh has hardened the hearts of Israel, is because Israel has behaved as Egypt. That's why in Revelation 11 the two witnesses are killed in Israel, Jerusalem, but it says in the place which spiritually is called Egypt and Sodom. So Israel nowadays spiritually is Egypt, just like the Pharaoh of Egypt had his heart hardened. So the people of nowadays who act as Egyptians in idolatry are getting the same result. Their hearts are being hardened to the truth, even though they may be Israel. So that's why many of those will have to become the many who will die and then resurrect to be justified because of their belief in the fact that Yahweh sent his son to die for their sins. Return for your servant's sake. Return, meaning he had already come. That shows that this has to do with the end times, the second coming. O Yahweh, why have you made us stray from your ways and harden our heart from your fear? Harden our heart from your fear. That's why the last, who comes as the heart, starts as the prodigal son. Because the heart is hardened. Because the heart has an inclination to evil. And since Yahweh would manifest as the heart of the congregation, he had to manifest as the prodigal son, because the heart has an inclination to evil. And to rectify that through Yahushua HaMashiach. That's why the last is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The first, Yahushua, is the tree of life. Tree of life, tree of knowledge. In Judaism it is said that they have the same root, because the root is Yahweh, who came as first and last. Tree of life, tree of knowledge. And since it is tree of knowledge of good and evil, that's why the last had to come and know what evil is by experience it through his life and rejecting it, of course, through Yahushua, the truth, and receiving the good of Yahweh. So, why have you made us stray from your ways and hardened our heart from your fear? The last especially has the fear of Yahweh, which is interesting with everything that I just said. Heart with fear. The last is given the spirit of fear of Yahweh to receive wisdom. And harden our heart from your fear. Return, like the second coming, for your servant's sake, like the many. The tribes of your inheritance, like the few. Your set apart people have possessed it but a little while, the land of Yahweh. Your set apart people have possessed it but a little while. Our adversaries have trodden down your set apart place. Our adversaries have trodden down your set apart place. If we see Revelation 11, that has to do with the coming of the two witnesses. I'm just going to read one verse. It says, verse 2, but leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the set apart city underfoot for 42 months. We just read here. Our adversaries have trodden down your set apart place. We have become like those of old, meaning when Israel was not a nation, when nobody knew who were the descendants of Abraham, because they had not come to the world. We have become like those of old, over whom you never ruled. Before Mashiach, Yahweh was ruling through Malachim. And those Malachim were ruling through whatever kings the nations had. We have become like those of old, over whom you never ruled, because there was another one ruling. Death ruled from Adam till Moshe. The law, meaning Hillel, ruled from Moshe to John the Baptist. When the head of John the Baptist was cut, so was Hillel's authority over this reality and in the few who accept Yahushua. Yahushua came and he brought the truth and favor. So we have become like those of old, over whom you never ruled. Those who were never called by your name, because they didn't have it, because it was hidden from them, because it was forbidden. Those who were never called by your name. That's why the many in this world right now claim to believe in him, but they don't have the name. They don't honor the name. They have become like those of old who are not called by his name. It could also be said the fact that we are Yahudim, yet we are not called Yahudim. Yahudim has the name Yahweh in it. We are not called by his name because they have taken from us our identity as his people. So that's how the chapter ends. And now I'm gonna give a couple more minutes for the questions, and then we'll close with it, with the questions. Oh, that's funny, the cough. Oh, that's a nice bull. In verse 10, if it says as an enemy, the word that relates to Peter Shimon. Ah, good question, sister. Let me see. Let's see what was verse 10. No, it is the one connected to Job. They're both connected to the last at the end. Well, actually Shimon or would have been connected to the first. As you know, Peter is a representation of the stone, the first stone, the cornerstone. Here the word is Oyev, which if you rearrange the letters, you have the name Job. So is how Job, which means hated, because the last will be hated by the world, thought Yahweh saw him and saw the name wrong and took him as an enemy, Oyeb. If you change the letter from Job, it becomes Oyeb, and therefore enemy. So Job as an enemy represents the last coming as an enemy. Let me see the questions. Verse 10, can it be seen like the only thing that cannot be forgiven is blasphemy against the set apart spirit? That's why he says he fought against them. Verse 10. But they rebelled and grieved his Ruach HaKodesh, so he turned himself against them as an enemy and he fought against them. Yeah, that's right. Good point. Yeah. Remember that for those who may not know, the only sin which is unforgivable is the blasphemy against the Ruach HaKodesh, like many of the Pharisees did when they saw the works of Yahweh. They saw the fulfillment of everything that they were waiting for, yet they claimed it wasn't and hated it and killed him. So, yeah, because of them rejecting the Ruach HaKodesh, blaspheming against the Ruach HaKodesh, that made the Ruach leave them, and therefore Yahweh became their enemy, even though they may be sons genetically of Abraham. See, 63:16, our Redeemer for everlasting is thy name, powerful. That's right, sister. And that shows how his name is the one that redeems us, because our Redeemer for everlasting is his name. So he redeems us through his name, and that's why also the name given to Yahushua is the name above every name, and there is no other name given to men under the heavens through which they may be saved. Return is like teshuvah in Hebrew. It should be, yeah, let me see. Verse 17. Return your for your servants' sake the tribes of your inheritance. Shub, yeah. Shub, return. It's like a command, like an order. Obviously, it's not an order to Yahweh. It's, a well, he's asking for Yahweh to return. I lost the word that I was trying to use. Requesting. It's a request, but the word itself, shub, as in return. So, yeah, it's the teshuvah. Teshuvah means, is translated as repentance. So, to turn, to return, and also, now that you say that, it's also very important. I don't know if that's the reason why you said it, but it confirms how the last, who is Yahweh, returned to earth, has himself to do teshuvah, return to Yahweh, as the prodigal son had to return to the father. So that shows how the last needed teshuvah, because he needed to return. All right, so that's the last question. So we're gonna close there. And yeah, I really liked how ended up, well, the study, how it all came out. I really like that it will be recorded so that anybody can hear it in the future, because I really like this chapter. So hopefully it was a blessing for you guys. People who says it's a miracle from Jesus or a miracle from the Lord, are they committing sin against Ruach? If they don't know, no, because that is unconscious sin. It would be unconsciously that they would do that because they don't know. But if you teach them, and let's say you teach them about Yahushua and Yahweh and how Jesus is not at all Yahushua, and after you teach them and they came to understand that, let's say you are used by Yahweh to perform a miracle, and after you perform that miracle in the name of Yahushua, they say, no, that was Jesus who did it. That would be a blasphemy against the Ruach. But after everything that I just said previously is in place. So the ignorance will protect many people, but nobody should seek for ignorance as protection. I want to make that clear. Our protection is our faith in Yahweh, the shield. But Yahweh is so merciful that he will shield some people because they did not understand what they did. So, yeah, hope that's understood.